everyone, Chris here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be playing Phase 10 Chooses My TBR. If you're new to my channel, Phase 10 is a TBR game I have created based on the game Phase 10. Basically, I'm trying to complete the phases every month, and I pull cards, and if I can't use them in my hand, they then correspond to a different prompt, and I have to complete that prompt. If I get a wild, I roll a die to determine how many extra prompts I have to read, and if I get a skip, it means I can skip a prompt for that month. I will leave the link to the playlist in the description below. So in addition to my Phase 10 TBR, I'm also participating in a bunch of readathons and book clubs and read-alongs. The main one that is taking place in March is Middle Grade March, and I have a dedicated TBR video to that, and I will link that in the description below along with all of the relevant information for that read-along. It's being hosted by Krista from Books and Jams, Amanda of the Curly Reader, and Katie from A Life Between Words. Like I said, all of the information about that will be linked in the description below. I will also be taking part in Becca from Becca and the Books 48-hour book Opalathon. This takes place March 20th and 21st. The first two prompts are fantasy and dark cover. During the readathon, you will find out more of the prompts. I will link all of the information about that in the description below. You'll hear more about the different things I'm participating in as we go along, as I'm hoping to get some of these books on my Phase 10 TBR. If I don't, I will address them after I go through the books I'm reading for Phase 10. Today is February 28th, and that means I only have the rest of today to finish whatever is left on my TBR from last month's game. And for that, I have The Ever After by Jodi Lynn Anderson, which I still have, a pretty good chunk of. And Face Blind by Lance Hovermill, which I also have a pretty good chunk of. Since I'm not sure I'm going to finish either of those, I'm going to draw my punishment cards for them. And you're not going to be able to see the board because I can't turn my camera around to show it, but the board is right over there. That's where I film my Phase 10 TBR. I'm obviously filming this after I have done my Phase 10 game. I was in a good spot then and kind of slowed down towards the end of the month. So at the time I filmed that, I thought I was going to be golden, but now I know better. So if I can't finish these, I wanted to at least include these prompts. So I don't even know if you're going to see this. It's all going to depend on how much reading I get done today. I've also decided that when I'm drawing a punishment, I cannot complete a phase. So my current phase is a run of 9, and I went through 1 through 9. So if I draw a 10, that would normally complete my phase, but because this is a punishment, it doesn't count. So here are my cards. Give them a quick shuffle. We'll say this is my punishment prompt for Face Blind if I don't finish this. And I drew a red 4. And so for my punishment draw for Ever After, we have a green 9. So, red 4 is a historical fiction novel not set during World War II. And a green 9 is 5 or more words in the title. If I have to read either one of those, you will hear about them at the end of my TBR. So stay tuned. As you can see, the board is set up for this month. I've got all the cards that I've used since I started this phase off of there, so I can't pull them again. I have my pull pile here, I have my prompts here, and I have my dice, which I'm hopefully not going to have to use this month. Draw number 1. And just like that, I have completed my phase. I needed a run of 8, and I now have it. So these are the 3 cards I now have to discard from. And I think I'll go with the red 12. And let's see, the prompt for red 12 is LGBTQ+ rep. So as you saw, I got LGBTQ plus rep, and for this I'm going to read Reverie by Ryan LaSala. So it says, some dreams chase you back, which sounds interesting enough. And the back says, he began to comprehend her final words before he slammed the door shut. I'll find you. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning, a promise. She'd known. This was the Reverie. So I don't know much more about this book. According to Goodreads, it's been put on the LGBTQ plus shelves a lot of times, so I'm assuming there's LGBTQ plus rep in this. This is also the book I got for BookTube Spin back in January. That is hosted by Rick from Rick McDonald, and I'll link his announcement video and his channel in the description below. Draw number 2. I can also use this. Oops. So I will go for a blue 11 this time. And the prompt for blue 11 is foiled cover. Next up, I got foiled cover, and for this, I'm going to be reading Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. I'm counting the title as the foiling because it looks shiny and foiled to me. This is the middle grade monthly book club pick, which is hosted by Jade from JD Ray Reads and Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin. I don't know really anything about this book, but Gavin has raved about it on his channel, so I'm really looking forward to seeing if I enjoyed it as much as Gavin did. Draw 3 is a green 1. And the prompt for green 1 is over 500 pages. Next, I got over 500 pages, and for this, I'm going to be reading Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman. This is also the alternate pick in the Simply Reread book club, which is hosted by Keilani from Keilani Simply Me. So this is the sequel to Scythe, and in that story, basically, we've found a way to make it so that we can't die. So a job was created for people called Scythes, and they are the only way somebody can die, and they go around killing people. And I read that book a while ago, and I know this series is loved, and I wasn't as into it as everybody else. And so when I saw that it was a pick for Keilani's book club, I decided that this was the perfect time to give the second book a go and see if I enjoy the second book better than the first, since I already owned it, and get it off my shelf and decide whether this is a series I want to continue or if I'm just happy to let it go. Draw 4 is another green 1. And for that, I have to read a fantasy. Next, I drew fantasy, and for this, I'm going to be reading City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I get the feeling I probably butchered their last name. This is the main pick for Keilani's book club. I have heard a lot of people rave about this book in this series on BookTube, and I know it was on my want to read shelf, as when I read what it was about at the time, it sounded interesting, or I wouldn't have added it. So when I saw that Keilani had picked it, I thought this was a good time to put it on my TBR. I, off the top of my head, don't know much about it. I would have to reread the description, but if it's on my TBR, I obviously wanted to read it at some point, so I thought this was a good time to get it on my TBR. Draw 5. It's a blue 12. And for that, we have green on the cover. For green on the cover, I'm going with Ghost a la Mode by Sue Ann Jafferin. And as you can see, there's green grass here. I read this book a while ago. I've actually read this book twice. Because, I found the series when I was younger and read it. And then for whatever reason, I didn't continue on. And so then I found it again and started reading it again and put it down. And then I happened to stumble across this book and go, oh my God, that series. So I requested this from the library and have wanted to get back into this series again. It says, Granny was famous for her award-winning apple pies and notorious for murdering her husband Jacob at their homestead in Julian, California. The only trouble is, Granny was framed, then murdered. For more than 100 years, Granny's spirit has been searching for someone to help her see that justice is served. And she hits pay dirt when she pops in on a seance attended by her great-great-great-granddaughter, modern-day divorced mom, Emma Whitecastle. Together, Emma and Granny Apples solve mysteries of the past, starting with Granny's own unjust murder rap in the final days of the California Gold Rush. So, yeah, I remember loving this book, and I really would like to continue on with the series, so it's been long enough that I need to reread the first book to do that, so this is a good time to do it. Draw 6. It's a yellow 4. The prompt for yellow 4 is animal on the cover. Next up, I got animal on the cover, and for this, I'm going to read The Brave by James Bird. I don't know if you can see, but there is a dog right down here on the cover. In this book, we follow Colin, and when somebody speaks to him, he has to count every letter in the words that are spoken to him. This leads to frustration with his dad, so he brings him to his mother, who lives on a reservation, and from there, he meets a girl who believes she is turning into a butterfly, and I think from there, their friendship kind of develops, and Colin learns more about himself through their friendship. I'm not quite sure, but it sounded interesting, and like I said, there's a dog on the cover, so I'll be giving this book a go. Draw 7 is a blue 4. Historical fiction. Next up, I got historical fiction, and for this, I'm going to be reading The Four Winds by Kristin Hannah. So, Kristin Hannah is an autobi author for me. This is set in the Great Depression, and I don't really know much more about it, but like I said, she's an autobi author for me, so I'm looking forward to seeing what this book is about, and if it can make me cry like basically every other Kristin Hannah book I've read has. Draw 8 is Wild. Of course it is. We wouldn't have it any other way. Draw 8, Part 2 is a blue 3. And for this, we have Cozy Mystery. Next up, I got Cozy Mystery, and for this, I'm going to be reading Cat About Town by Kate Conti. This is the first book in the Cat Cafe mystery series, and it says that it's the first novel in a frisky new mystery series set in a small New England town where an unlikely citizen is called in to solve the perfect crime. So I know it follows this woman who I'm going to assume finds a murder, and I know she finds a cat, and I love cozy mysteries, especially when they have a cat companion, so I'm looking forward to checking this series out and seeing if it's one I want to continue. Draw 9 is a yellow 4. And for this, we have TBR Vet. Next, I got TBR Vet, and for this, I'm going to be reading On What Grounds by Cleo Coyle. I've had this book for a very, very long time. I don't even know how long. I know I've read part of this series, but this is one of the series that I want to complete or catch up on in 2021, so I figured this was a good time to get the first book on my TBR. It says, Claire Cozy used to manage the historic Village Blind Coffee House until she opted for quieter pastures and a more suburban life. But after 10 years and a little friendly cajoling from the owner, a fresh pot of Jamaican Blue Mountain was all it took. She's back to the grind, serving coffee and solving crime, one cup at a time. This is another series that I'm looking forward to diving back into. And the last of my regular draws, Draw 10. I shouldn't have said that was the last of my regular draws. It is another Wild. Oh, goody. 2 punishment rules. I'm thrilled. Draw 10, Part 2 is a blue 7. lowest rated. Next, I got lowest rated, and for this, I'm going to be reading Flying by Carrie Jones. Last time this was on my TBR for lowest rated, I used one of my skips to not have to read it, and, well, it's come around again. Hopefully, I actually get to it this time and get it off my TBR. Okay, so roll number 1 for the wilds is 5. Oh no. This is not looking good for me. I was hoping for low numbers. Ellie, get down. Get down. Wild draw number 1 is a yellow 8. Seasonal. Next up, I got seasonal, and this means I need to read a book that represents the season I am in. I live in New York, so here it is winter. So for this, I will be reading The Girl Who Speaks Bear by Sophie Anderson. I mean, just look at the cover. It's very wintry, so I think that's going to fit the bill. I've heard a lot of really good things about this book, so I'm looking forward to checking it out. Wild draw number 2 is another yellow 8. Oh, the cards have just lined up to be in a row today. Air on the cover or in the title. Next, I got Air on the cover and the title, and for this, I'm going to be reading The Great Brain Robbery by P.G. Bell. So, the reason I'm counting this as Air on the cover, which I mean I could have done because of the sky, is because if you look, it looks like the wind is blowing through his hair, and so I thought that meant that this was a very apt cover for Air. This is the second book in the Train to Impossible Places series. In the first book, Susie discovers the train to impossible places and sneaks aboard it, which leads to some adventures in the land of impossible places where she helps deliver packages. I really enjoyed the first book, so I'm looking forward to checking the second book in this trilogy out. Wild draw number 3. It's another wild, which means I have to do another roll. I'm royally screwed this month. Wild draw number 3, part 2 is a blue 8. Random page generator. So as you saw, I got random page generator and I came up with 90, and the closest book on my shelf to this was Creep Over, Truth or Dare by PJ Knight. I know absolutely nothing about this book, but as it was the closest based on page count, it is the one that's going on my TBR. I think this is a super creepy middle grade, so we're going to see if I like it, because I don't like super creepy books, but maybe given that it's middle grade, I won't mind it as much. Wild draw number 4 is a green 2. Water on the cover or in the title. Next up, I got Water on the cover in the title, and for this, I'm going to read 3 Times Lucky by Sheila Turnage. This is also my pick for Buzzwordathon. The word this month is time, and as you can see, time is in the title of this book. It says, Mo's summer is looking good, but that's before the murder, the kidnapping, the car crash, and the hurricane. Now she and her best friend are setting out to solve the mystery of their lives. Good thing Mo's always been lucky. So yeah, it sounds like it's going to be quite the interesting book, and it'll fulfill this prompt and the prompt for Buzzwordathon. Buzzwordathon, by the way, is hosted by Kayla from Books and Lala, and you will find the information about that linked in the description below. And wild draw number 5 is a green 12. Nonfiction. Next up, I got nonfiction, and for this, I'm going to be reading Killing the Business from the Backyards to the Big Leads by Matt and Nick Jackson. So I had hoped to get to this in February, and it just didn't work out. This is the autobiography of Matt and Nick Jackson. They are the Young Bucks. They're wrestlers. I absolutely love wrestling, and I am really looking forward to reading this book. I was reminded last month with one of the books I chose how much I love reading biographies and autobiographies. So I'm really looking forward to diving into this one. Okay, so for wild roll number 2, please be small. We have a 1. Oh, I got lucky there. Watch this be another wild. Okay, so for my second wild, and my only draw for this one, hopefully, it's a skip. Okay. That means I will be able to skip one of these prompts, and oh man, am I going to need it. Wild number 2, draw 1, part 2 is wild. What did I tell you? Okay, so wild 2, draw 1, part 3 is a red 11. Okie dokie. Red 11 is pull pick. As you saw, I got pull pick. So when this video goes live, I will be putting a poll up on my Twitter with my 4 options. I decided that since it was middle grade March, I would only choose middle grade books for this. And on top of that, since I'm trying to work through some of the books that have been on my shelves the longest, I thought I would go with the middle grades that have been on my shelves the longest. So my 4 options are The Silver Door by Emily Rhoda. This is the second book in a series. I can't remember what the name of the series is. It's like the 3 Doors series or the Magic Doors series or something like that. In this, we follow Rye, who I believe lives in a city where there's like monsters outside the walls, and the adults are being sent out to try to slay the monsters or something like that, and both of his older brothers go and they don't come back, so he takes it upon himself to go after them. The only way to leave the city is through one of 3 different doors, and I believe in this book he goes through a different door this time. I know I enjoyed the first book, so I'm totally down to read the second one. The second option is Circle of Heroes by Adam J. Epstein and Andrew Jacobson. This is the 3rd book in the Familiar series. In this series, we follow a cat named Alwyn, who is the familiar to a human, and they are trying to stop somebody from taking over their world, I believe. This is another series I need to get through and have had on my shelves for a while, so it's another good option. Option 3 is The Storybook of Legends by Shannon Hale. This book is the first in a series that follows the daughters of Snow White and the Evil Queen. I have had this book for quite a while, and other than the fact that it is like a next generation fairy tale retelling, I don't know much more about it. And option 4 is Ghost of a Chance by Susan Maupin Schmidt. This is the 2nd book in the 100 Dresses series. In this series, we follow Darling Dimple, and she works at a castle as the person who irons the princess's clothes. In the first book, she finds a closet full of magical dresses that when she puts them on, she turns into somebody else. I really enjoyed the first book. I thought it was quite whimsical and definitely had those fairy tale vibes, and so I would totally be down to jump back into these series. So those are your 4 choices. Please go to my Twitter, which I will have linked in the description below, to vote for one of these books to be on my TBR this month. For Wild 3's roll, we have a 2. Okay. You'd think I've got to be running out of wilds by now, but probably not, knowing my luck. So wild number 3, draw 1, is a yellow 9. Young adult. Next up, I got young adult, and for this, I'm going to be reading Truthwitch by Susan Denard. Jade from JD Ray Reads is doing a Witchlands along in anticipation for, I think, the final book in this series, which is coming out later this year. So she's planning to read one book a month until the new release comes out. And I saw her announcement video for this. I checked to see if it was a book I wanted to read, and it was. So I decided to participate, as I figured this was a good time to get into this series, especially if the last book in the series, I think it's the last book, is coming out later this year. I will also be using this most likely for fantasy and dark cover for Becca's Bookopoly-thon, as this cover isn't really dark, but one of the other covers of this book is a dark cover, so I'm counting that. Other than that, I don't know much about it, but I'm looking forward to participating in both Witchlands Along and Becca's Bookopoly-thon. Wild 3, Draw 2 is a green 9. Oops. And this is Mom Pick. Next up, I got Mom Pick, and for this, I'm going to be reading A Sprinkle of Spirits by Anna Mariano. This is the second book in the Love, Sugar, Magic series. In this book, we follow Leo, whose family are Brujas, and she kind of works in their bakery, and they have like bakery magic. They can do magic with baking, and I really enjoyed Leo and her family dynamics in the first book, and I'm looking forward to see what kind of magical antics she gets up to in this one. And for Wild 4's roll, we have 1. Oh, as long as this one isn't a wild, I might actually be okay. Please, please don't be another wild, please. Wild 4, draw 1 is a green 3. Oh, I can breathe a sigh of relief now. So green 3 is another Booktubers TBR. And lastly, I got another Booktubers TBR. This means that I had to watch other Booktubers I follow to find out books that were going to be on their TBR and pick one of the books they were going to be reading to put on my own TBR. Now, I could have made this really easy for myself, as obviously Keilani is going to be reading her book club picks, and Jade and Gavin will have Amari and the Night Brothers on their TBR. Jade will have Truthwitch on her TBR because she's doing Witchlands Along. But I wanted to make it more challenging for myself. I decided that the only way I could use a book was if it wasn't for the reason I already had it on my TBR. Because obviously I had Thunderhead and Amari and the Night Brothers and City of Brass on my TBR. So I wanted to make it a little bit more difficult for myself. However, Vicky from Vicky's Book Nook is going to be reading The Jumbies by Tracy Baptiste. When I saw that she was going to be reading that for, I believe, Middle Grade March, I got really excited because I knew it was a book I had on my shelf, and I'm trying really hard to read some of my own TBR. So it says, behind her, the bushes rustled. She turned just in time to see something more in the shadows. Surely it was only an animal, but what if it was another kind of thing entirely? A jumbie. So yeah, this seems like it's going to be a bit of a spooky book, and it is also on the shorter side, which I also really appreciated given how Phase 10 royally screwed me this month. I'm looking forward to checking this book out and seeing where it falls on the spooky scale. As you saw in the beginning of this video, I did draw 2 punishment cards in case I needed them. And the punishment prompt I got for if I don't finish The Ever After was 5 or more words in the title. And for this, I'm going to be reading The Times I Knew I Was Gay. I don't know who the author is off the top of my head, but again, there'll be a picture right here. I recently took this book out of my library. It is actually one of the books that is being used to prop up my camera because I sat my phone on top of a stack of books, and it is part of that stack of books, so it's actually right down there. I believe it is like a graphic novel, so it shouldn't be too long of a read, and so if I need to use this punishment prompt, then that is the book I will be reading. So these are the books I'm going to be reading in the month of March. What books are you going to be reading in the month of March? If you've made it this far in the video, leave me heart emojis in the comment section below for luck, because I'm definitely going to need it. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!